Hey everybody, I'm here to show you how to use my improvising sheets for your lessons as a fun and engaging way to teach and reinforce chord progressions. In my theory book, I begin by explaining tonic and dominant chords. I use the house as my picture to show tonic chords because it is our home bass chord. I then explain that the dominant chord is a traveling chord and that we usually end up coming back home from the dominant chord. We can remember this by using a suitcase, as when we travel, we take a suitcase with us and then we come back and bring our suitcase back home. So that's the symbol I chose to use for the dominant chord. You can also refer to these chords as with their Roman numerals, and that's fine. I'll also have a version that you can download that uses Roman numerals instead of the pictures. In my later versions of my book, I plan to convert to Roman numerals at some point, but I feel like this helps explain the function of the chords a little better than just the numbers. But anyway, let's get started. When you download this packet, the first page is just going to have some information, basically the stuff I just talked about the tonic and dominant. And on the back page, we have instructions and examples for how to fill the pages out. But the pages themselves are not quite this busy, but this one's to show you how to do it. So what I suggest is when you print these off, I would print them on cardstock, just so they're not as flimsy, or be prepared to put them in a binder so that they don't flop around. But the idea is to print them out and put them in a slip cover, clear sleeve, so that you can write on them with dry erase markers and just erase it. And you can use it over and over again, and you don't have to write anything out every week like I used to have to do. Anyway, so here is our first example. So this is the first one. So let's say I'm teaching a student the key of C, and I'm teaching them the tonic and the dominant chord in the key of C. So what I do is I'd put this out on the piano and then we'd fill it out together. So the student will say, okay, I'm in the key of C major. So we write key of C major. So I ask the student, okay, so what is the tonic chord of C? And they say it's the C major chord. And we know that it's these three notes, C, E, G. That makes up our tonic chord. Then I'll ask them, what's the dominant chord? It's a G major chord. So then we write G, B, D. That's our G major chord, right? So next what we're going to do is we need to decide on a time signature, because if we're going to play together, we need to know how many beats. So we'll say, do we want 4 beats per measure or 3 beats per measure? And let's start with 4. So right here is where I write the time signature. Now with students who are not as familiar with the bottom number, you might just want to keep to the box and say, okay, we're going to do 4 beats for every measure. But for students who are a little more advanced, who actually understand both numbers, the time signature, you can write both. That's what this line right here in the middle is for. So we're in 4/4 time. Okay, so each one of these is a measure, and each measure is worth 4 beats. Okay, so over here we're going to decide how many times we want to play the example. So I want to play this 3 times. Okay, so we have our time signature. We know how many times we're going to play it through. Now it's time to label the chords. So student, I say, okay, this house is this tonic or dominant. They say, oh, this is the tonic chord. So we write, okay, it's a C major chord. That one's a C major, this one's C major, and we have our G. So now we've filled out the whole chart. We know we're in the key of C. We know the notes that are in the tonic. We know the notes in the dominant. We know how many beats each measure is going to be and how many times. So now what we're going to do is I would play the chord progression. So I'd play a C chord or something, C accompany with the student something in C, and I'd play this chord for 4 beats, then this one, so on and so forth. And the student would improvise over it. Now there's lots of ways to teach improvising, but normally when I begin teaching improvising, I'd keep them in the position. They'd play C, E, and G to start, and they'd be in that position, and then they'd move to G position and play this. But over time, as they get more comfortable, I might let them move around on the piano to different positions. We can talk about neighbor tones, passing tones. You can play more than one note at a time. So the sky's really the limit here. So it's totally up to you how you want to improvise. This is just a tool to help teach your student and make it easy for you to write this stuff down. So that's just example 1. As you can see with example 3, I've got a few more chords. I know it's hard to see that one. That was the tonic. But we have a few more chords. So this one you'd play tonic, dominant, and we do that 3 times. And then we're going to end on tonic. So I did that because we don't want to end on a dominant. Doesn't sound so good. And then later you'll see they get a little bit more complex. So look at example 5 here. We've got 8 different chords. So it's a little bit of a longer sequence, so a little bit harder. Number 11, still 8, but we've got a different sequence. So that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed this download and hope it's useful to you and your students in teaching improvising and just making it really easy. This works for major or minor keys. If I want to do a minor key, I could do A minor. The tonic chord would be A, C, E, dominant, E, G sharp, B, and it'd be really easy to do this to reinforce any keys that you're working on. As difficult as F sharp or as easy as C, so it's really up to you. So that's pretty much it. So enjoy and thank you.